Saying the quiet things out loud. You are only as sick as the secrets you keep. The hard part about burying a secret is that it stays alive. Along with doing a podcast, I listen to a lot of podcasts now, and I think our phones listen to us. I've been talking a lot about secrets and how I've just been willing to protect other people by keeping their secrets or keeping things about me secret to protect someone else and going around and around with this. And so every time I turn around, I'm being introduced to something about secret keeping. So two things happened to me. I listened to a podcast called Family Secrets. So obviously it's about family secrets. And what I like about this podcast is that it doesn't just talk about what the family secrets are. Yes, I hear interesting, amazing stories, crazy stories, heartbreaking stories, wonderful stories about families that functioned on secrets, things not being shared. And the secrets are wide and varied. You know, that sometimes it's an internal secret, sometimes it's a relative secret, sometimes it's an abuse secret, sometimes it's a money or an adoption secret. It's everything. But the major theme of the podcast is that the secret themselves, the act of the secret, is what affects people, that you have to walk around living in duplicity or duality and how difficult that can be. And I listened to one the other day about a girl who has an intersex condition called CAIS, complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. And it's one of those disorders of sexual development that truly makes you understand and appreciate the many steps that go into the development of an embryo in the body to become a boy or a girl and a human female with everything working. Now, I lost a baby to a heart defect, and the process that the heart goes through to become a fully functioning four-chambered heart is not just one little step. It's several things that have to happen in a certain order at a certain time for it to work. And for the most part, it does. But when it doesn't, you have baby Gordy with two chambers, and it's upside down and backwards and all, mixed up every which way to Sunday. He's can't live with that heart. It doesn't mean human beings don't have healthy hearts and they're not supposed to, that they are. And sometimes they don't work. And so this girl grew up, she was born in the early 80s. And so she grew up in the 80s, the 90s, and she had CAIS, complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. So what happens is you have an embryo, and we all start out female when the embryo is first fertilized. And then certain steps happen that dictates whether it goes down the boy path or the girl path. And so her embryo, her body started going down the boy path. So there are several things that happen. There's testosterone. Then there are receptors in the body that respond to the testosterone. Then there are other hormones that activate the testosterone. And each step does the next thing. The internal systems that function for men. The development of testes initially is internal, and then they drop. And so you have certain things that have to happen for sexual characteristics to develop. But in this girl's case, the receptor that allowed testosterone to become active in the body didn't work. So even though her internal testicles produced testosterone, since there was nothing to receive the testosterone, her body converted the testosterone to estrogen, and she developed as a female. So she was born with outward, labia, vulva, just like a girl would. When she to teenage years, she developed breasts. She never did develop body hair. Her vagina was never fully developed in terms of being deep. She had to manipulate it in certain ways and have some surgical interventions to make that functional. She did not have a penis. She had internal testes, which in those days they removed, which sent her into menopause. I don't know that they do that now. Here's what the deal is. If she were to just cheek swab herself, she would be XY, which is male chromosome. Further testing would indicate that she had CAIS and that even though her chromosomal reality was XY, several steps of sexual development did not occur for her because her body couldn't respond to the testosterone, and so it developed as if it were female. What made this secret so difficult for her was that it ran in her family. 3 of her aunts had it. So, of course, no babies, no period, all those sorts of things. It was this big secret. And so she won a Mrs. America pageant. And when they asked, do you have something in your life you wish you could share, she talked about it. And she talked about how people didn't understand the reality of this, that her ability to be XY and compete in female sports because she has no active testosterone, some people don't understand that. They lump all these things together. The bottom line for her was she never felt like she was completely one or the other. Her chromosomes said one thing. The steps that her body needed to take to receive those chromosomes and function as a male never happened. It was the most powerful episode because she really just articulated beautifully and without judgment what it was like to be her. She walked around her whole life carrying a secret that she carried for self-protection, that her mother said needed to protect the family, that people wouldn't understand. And when the time was right for her, she was able to share it. In times like this, I find this to be incredibly educational and helpful because life is seldom black and white, and most of the truth exists in the gray. So, her secret was huge. So, my secret was I'm walking around all my life making believe I'm normal when I'm not normal. I'm being abused, or I'm having a relationship with someone I'm not supposed to. And so, I have to act a certain way and present a certain reality that isn't true. It's a skill that you develop and hone. I suggest that you listen to a podcast episode. It's called The Human Experience, and I'm the guest. And I tell my story. Now, most of you who listen to me know my story, but I tell it all at once. Jennifer's questions to me didn't focus on the specifics of what happened. So much of it focused on the secrets. And she really just understood how damaging and detrimental it is for children to be raised in an environment where every time you turn around, somebody's telling you to be quiet. Don't share that. Don't tell that. Don't tell this person. Don't tell that person. This is our secret. You need to keep this secret. And then when you do tell or do share, maybe you get in trouble. And I think it will resonate with anyone listening who has hidden abuse, has hidden relationships, has lost a child, has had babies late, has suffered infertility, has been divorced, has been an athlete. All these things get covered in the story. In the spirit of the things we don't say and saying the quiet parts out loud, take a listen to Jennifer Peterkin's podcast, The Human Experience, and her interview with me. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Be good to yourself. Be good to someone else. Have a good day and listen to this podcast right now.
Welcome to The Human Experience, a podcast about the stories we live out every day and the importance of championing the vulnerability and courage of the storyteller. I'm your host, Jennifer Peterkin, and it was through my own lived story of experiencing domestic violence that this podcast was created. By traveling the globe and interviewing each guest in person, I am convinced now more than ever that stories have the power to change the world. Thank you for being here. In a world full of noise, to listen with intention is an act of resistance. Barb, thank you so much for finally meeting with me.
Yay.
And that finally is on me. I'm the one that took forever to get to New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's okay.
But we've been in touch for a couple of years, actually.
Yep.
And I have been wanting to come and wanting to sit down with you and hear your story. And so I'm so happy that we made it happen finally.
Finally in my messy, messy office.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you for hosting in your home. That's
Yep.
always such a pleasure to be able to come and see where you live and be in your space.
Yep.
It's extra special.
Yep.
So thank you.
No, thank you.
So I really want to just jump off the cliff here and get started. You have a lot of facets to your story.
I do. Indeed.
And you have your own podcast called 1,000 Tiny Steps,
Yep.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you do a lot of work born out of your own experiences
Correct.
and your own story. So if I ask you to tell your story, where does that start for you?
It starts when I was about 7 years old, quite honestly.
Perfect. Let's go.
So I grew up about 200 meters as the crow flies from this house, right on the other side of the park. I've traveled far.
Yeah.
And well, I did take the long way to get here.
There you
Thousands of miles.
There you
1,000 tiny steps.
Exactly.
So Concord, New Hampshire is a very, very typical New England town. It's a capital. It has some government and lots of lawyers and Italian restaurants owned by Greek families, which I think is endemic to America.
Mm-hmm.
And so my childhood was really, really normal until it wasn't. And so I was the victim of childhood sexual abuse, which in 1971, when it began, to 76, when I finally had the guts to tell, no one talked about it. I didn't even know it was wrong until I read an article. I was having my hair done and I read True Story, that magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about a girl who had been, sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And I'm reading the article. And all of a sudden it dawns on me that what's happening to me is illegal.
Wow.
So, I'm 10 or 11 at the time now, and it's really hard to go through all that. So the lucky part for me, and this is another thing I do a lot and people sometimes don't understand, but in the disgusting reality of childhood sexual abuse, I was very lucky because I was never physically hurt. I was never belittled or made to feel stupid or ugly or bad. I mean, you bring those things onto yourself. And my abuser, when he wasn't being abusive, was kind and wonderful and in many ways a really, really good father, except he wasn't.
Yeah.
And so for me, growing up in that confusing reality, I became a very confused, teenager and adult. So I told my mother, and my parents divorced, and life sort of went on for me through middle school and high school. My parents then remarried, which still remains difficult for me because I don't know if I have that level of forgiveness to take somebody back.
Yeah.
If somebody hurt Gracie like that, I'm not sure. I'm not my mom. I don't live inside her head. I didn't have her circumstances. So it's been a lifetime challenge of forgiveness to my mom. But I also have to acknowledge that she did the best she could. She still does. So I go to high school. I'm asthmatic and skinny and always, troubled and messed up. And I find running. And so I start running. Now, another little piece to the story is the reason I started running is I fell madly in love with my biology teacher, who was one of those creepy teachers that had relationships with students. I didn't think he was creepy at the time. I still don't think he's creepy. Again, he brought to his messed up life his entire journey. So my first true love and relationship was illegal, which matches a lot of child abuse victims. Shouldn't happen, somebody much older. It sort of fit a narrative that I didn't even know existed at the time.
Yeah.
So, but I started running. And so lo and behold, I was really good at it. I was the first high school girl to break 5 minutes in the mile in the state of New Hampshire.
Wow.
1981, long time ago. I still hold the school record over there at my high school. So that was life-changing for me. It was the first time that I felt okay with my body. Anyone who's been abused hates their bodies. And so it was the first time that I could look down at myself and think, oh my God, I'm so glad that I live inside here. So I went off to college, full scholarship athlete, in the 80s. So the 80s was all about partying and dating. And, it was like post birth control, pre-AIDS, so it was like 5 years of like, yay, then, from what I recall.
Yeah.
And so then I came home. And for a year, ostensibly to get out of debt and sort of straighten up. I was excessive partier, drank a lot. I still struggle with alcohol sometimes. So I went to AA for 7 years. Like I just came home and decided I need to fix myself. Another very common strategy of abuse victims. So going through my 20s, I got a teaching job here in Concord. I was continually, had a gazillion boyfriends and, never going to settle down, that sort of thing. And then I met my first husband, and he was in some ways just a carbon copy of my father, which is, in hindsight, incredibly troubling, but also in hindsight, gaining perspective in years of therapy and talking to people and listening to other stories, not at all uncommon. So that marriage did not last very long. I met him in June, married him in September, so we'd only known each other a few months. And while we were fully, legally married for 5 years, it only lasted really about 2.5 years. We both belonged to the same religion, the Baha'i faith. And fortunately, that religion has a really, really healthy view of marriage. The marriage is like an entity itself. So say it's a bird. So the husband is a wing and the wife is a wing, and you can't have one that's got more clout than the other, or the bird won't fly. So it really, really was about communication and talking and all. And so I think it's why we were able to end the marriage amicably and all of this. So then I meet Kenny. And we get married and, we meet and date and get married. And so now I have this sort of picket fence life, right? And I feel like this is what I'm supposed to have. And so I'm teaching, and I have Gracie, then I have Molly. Now, before I had Gracie, Kenny and I had a surprise pregnancy, which is much more well-known now that I've lost Molly. I didn't know I was pregnant. I didn't find out I was pregnant until I was 14 weeks pregnant, which nowadays, you're pregnant before you've even missed a period.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was gaining weight. My behavior was erratic. I suddenly had boobs, which was wonderful, but I wasn't really sure why. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, okay, this could be something different. And sure enough, I was pregnant, but I was on the pill at the time. So I, of course, didn't at all think I could be pregnant, and drinking and partying and not living a life that would be good, conducive to a baby. Now, none of those things are why baby Gordy didn't make it. But when I went to have an amniocentesis, because, I was 36 at the time, or 35, so that was considered a geriatric pregnancy, I had to have all these tests. And one was an amnio. And when I had the ultrasound with the amnio, the heart was not right. There weren't 4 chambers. They couldn't get a good view of it. So long story short, baby Gordy had a heart defect that he would be born and then drown. He had a good fish heart, not a good person heart. So we what do we do? I had every test imaginable. So I induced labor at like 22 weeks. And he didn't even make a round of contractions, and he came out this teeny perfect thing. And so we made the hard decision to donate his body to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia because they had an amazing cardiac care unit. And so they were able to take his little teeny tiny broken heart and print it on like a 3D printer and manipulate it. So now I think 11 babies have been able to have surgery, like reparative enough so they can be born because of that little teeny tiny heart.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, for a long time, I think it's how I've sort of justified deciding to give birth, instead of letting it all play out. But in hindsight, it's been a good thing for him. And he comes back into the story.
Okay.
He's connected to Jack, believe it or not. So we do that. We lose baby Gordy. We get pregnant with Gracie, get married, have Gracie, have Molly, and my life is marching along. Having read this book, The Body Keeps the Score, a very, very common problem with child abuse victims and hypervigilance is the reason we're hypervigilant is because when we let our guard down, something bad happens and we assume it's us.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a child, if I stopped paying attention, if I stopped cleaning my room just right, or if I wore the pajamas that I wore when the abuse happened, if I let my guard down and it happened again, I immediately thought it was my fault. So whenever things got too comfortable, something bad would happen. So the adult version of this, which doing my podcast has sort of helped me learn, is that when things get good in your life, you got to find a way to create a drama or fuck it up. So right around the time Molly and Gracie were, maybe 3 and 5, no, actually like 1 and 3, 2 and 4, I met a family, a very, very crazy, crazy family, and became really good friends with the mother. And our friends' daughters played together and all this. And that sort of led me down a path of, one of my podcast episodes is called The Note in the Backpack. And the note was from this little girl's mother saying, "Oh, we'd love a play date." And I met this family. And so it began. And so from, I would say 2005 or so to 2009, 2010, 2011, like that chunk of time, 5 or 6 years, I was in this really unhealthy relationship with this family and getting sort of pulled into helping them and helping with their kids and getting sort of triangulated between the husband and the wife. And I talk a lot about it in the podcast. So they separate, there's restraining orders, the kids are in trouble. I've, had to call social services. It was all of this stuff going on. Long story short, at the end of, I ended up, Kenny and I were struggling, separated, back together, started spending time with the man in this family, got really pulled into a relationship with him. I made my decisions. So I ended up losing my teaching job, 20-year teaching career, because the mother went up to the high school and said all these different things that enough truth that she could get away with saying it, but very, very spun. And it was sort of the perfect storm of a very corrupt superintendent and a principal that was angry at a decision I had made about a student, like all these things that can only happen in public education in America. So I ended up being forced to resign. And so I remember when I lost Molly and thinking, oh my God, this hurts about the same as my job loss hurt, because at the time that was my biggest loss.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd lost the baby, but I'd never met Gordy. So it wasn't the kind of loss like that Molly was.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm including all this is because it really feeds into sometimes in looking at why did Molly die, how, even though it's not my fault, a million left turns that could have been right turns, like where might that have led me? And I think that's the beauty of life sometimes is you change one turn, one action, and 50 things behind it change. So I went through several years of not teaching. I taught at a charter school. I worked for an event management company. I got into CrossFit. I let go of running at that point because it was just too painful for me I coached cross country and track for all those years. Got into CrossFit, which was life-saving. And then was sort of on again, off again with Kenny, on again, off again with Roy, the father of the kids that we helped. And then Molly dies. And so my world just, it's like an explosion. It just blows up. And that was probably the event, the course of events that really truly hobbled me. Like, do you ever watch Stephen King movies? So Kathy Bates, when Misery.
Yes.
And she hobbled him. So that was the metaphorical chopping off my foot, Molly's death. And that's how it felt. I just felt like everything just stopped. And it stopped for me for a long time. Roy and I completely stopped seeing each other. We communicated on again, off again a little bit after that, but not at all. It was just too much. And then I went into a really dark sort of 2-year span of drug use. I was on everything known imaginable, but I had a friend here in my town who has a lot of clout and a lot of money. We have this idea that the only people that do drugs are homeless people that live in camps, and really wealthy, successful, upper class people participate in pretty heavy drug use. And I got pulled into a community of people. So I was high every day for like 2 years. And
I could beat myself up about it, but there were days that I think I might not have lasted. I might not have made it if I wasn't under the influence of something. But along while that was all happening and I was trying to, keep Gracie okay and put together a life without Molly and do a lawsuit, we filed a lawsuit and sued the hospital and the pediatric practice. So for reference, Molly started getting headaches in late 2015, early 2016, and we took her to the doctors over and over again. And she was thin and she was, anxious and your typical 13-year-old type A personality. And she really just got blown off. Spent 16 hours in an emergency room being denied care. Basically, they gave her migraine medicine and told us to stop asking for scans. They weren't going to scan her head. And we're here 16 hours, and then a brain tumor ruptured in her head and killed her. That's how she died in the hospital, in the hospital. So it was horrifying. So they sent us to another hospital. She spent a week on life support. They knew that she wouldn't wake up, but they also knew that Molly was 13. So even though you think you try everything. So the tumor came out super easily. Had they just done a scan at 11 in the morning, they would have taken out the tumor, and you and I wouldn't be talking right now.
Oh.
So that whole experience was horrifying. Now, I said I was lucky in the child abuse reality. In the child loss reality, Molly didn't kill herself. Molly wasn't raped and murdered. Molly wasn't kidnapped, and we don't know where she is. She was alive and happy, and then she was dead. So to me, there's a measure of good fortune in that. If I'm going to lose a child, her tumor wasn't cancerous, so she wouldn't have had to go through chemo or anything like that. It was just this benign tumor in a bad place. And the community support was incredible. Her funeral was a variety show, Molly B. the Musical. Like 1,300 people came. It filled a theater downtown.
Wow.
Capitol Center for the Arts. It was amazing. Again, huge support, but utterly hobbled. So in the 2 years after her death, Gracie and I slept on the living room floor for those whole 2 years. We just didn't go upstairs. Couldn't. Another weird thing I couldn't do for like 6 months is I could not shower here. I just couldn't. I went into labor with Molly in the downstairs shower, and the upstairs bathroom I didn't use for probably a year and a half. I just didn't use it. So I would shower at the Y or I wouldn't shower for days and days and days. It took me a long time to just be able to. And even so today I went upstairs to shower, and when I sit on the toilet, I look at the floor where Molly laid sick so much that last year, and I get upset.
Yeah.
I'm 10 years from those days now, and it's still there it is,
Yeah.
I can't sit on that toilet without immediately looking down. That's where her water bottle was, like all of it just stays. So during the 2016, 2017, beginning of 2018, I kept having this recurring dream that I was supposed to have a baby. So the dream was actually mostly intense in the latter part of 2016. I had it like 5 or 6 times. And, I'm high all the time and I have no money. I'm not working. We're on Medicaid. Kenny's on disability. He needs a kidney transplant. Poor Gracie. Like our family is just, it can't get any worse. So we think. So I had this dream. So I went to a nurse practitioner that I'd gone to for years and said, look, I've been having this dream and this and that. Could you check me out to see if I could potentially have a baby? And she screamed at me like, that's disgusting. That's the grief talking. You need to get a therapist. Like she really let me have it. So I thought, well, okay, thank you for nothing. So I didn't do anything. That was July. So maybe 2 or 3 months into the fall, I just the dreams just kept coming. And sometimes it was a voice and sometimes it was an intricate dream with dance moms and neighbors and like those dreams that don't make sense. So I finally made an appointment with my OBGYN that I'd known for years and years. He had practiced with the doctor that delivered Gracie and Molly. So I go see him and he does a bunch of blood work and he said, well, you're not going to be able to, I can't just give you, Clomid and all this. You're going to have egg extraction and IVF and a lot of hormonal support to make this work. But, I was 52 at the time. And he said, but you're 52. So I don't know that anyone's going to see you do this or whatever. Or maybe I was 53. So you got to find a practice that does older women. So I have a friend that knew somebody. So I called this clinic and I went down. And I had like a general physical and all this. And the doctor, this great Italian guy, Vito Cardoni. I love him so much. He's just this Italian grandpa.
Yeah, what a name. Though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And so he's like, you have to go through all this testing. So I did. I had colonoscopy. I had, just all of it. I had all the testing. I had to have, oh, wait, let me stop for a minute. All I did was the beginning stuff. And he told me everything I would have to do and how much it would cost. And we weren't there yet. I knew that if I was going to have a baby, I couldn't be getting high all the time. I wasn't ready to not, like, we weren't there. And plus, we had no money. And we were just new in the lawsuit. So I just sort of said to the sky, enough, I can't have this dream anymore. Stop. When I can, I will. And the dream went away. So all of 2017 and the first half of 2018, we spent in the lawsuit and just trying to get by. In the meantime, Kenny's getting sicker and sicker and sicker. He's got kidney disease. He's on dialysis. Dialysis is great in the beginning, but then it beats the crap out of you. And so he basically slept, vomited, went to dialysis. Like, that was really just his life. So we settled the lawsuit in 2018, end of June. And it wasn't maybe 10 days, and the dream came back, which is, bizarre.
Yeah.
So I was still sleeping on the living room floor down here. So I'm having my coffee on the porch, and Kenny comes down. And I said, hey, guess what dream I had last night? And he went, baby dream. And I'm like, yes. He goes, I woke up thinking about it. I don't know why. I woke up and just was thinking about it. So we decided to start the process. So that was the fall of 2018. So by that time, I had given up using any hard drugs. I was still on all my prescriptions, of course. So I went to my doctor, primary care doctor, and we set out a plan. It was like 3 months it took me to get off all the medicine I was on, the anti-panic medicines, the sleep medicines, the wake-up medicines, the antidepressants, all of it. It's amazing. They just keep adding them in.
Yeah.
So and during that time, my face started to hurt again. So I have a nerve condition called trigeminal neuralgia. And it causes you have a nerve in your face, and it just causes extreme, horrifying pain. And who knows why? Your trigeminal nerve is behind your ear. I had a root canal that went wrong, and so they think that once the nerve is fired, it never stops firing. So you just have like a knife in your face all the time. So they give you anti-seizure meds to treat it, and they're fairly effective, but I was taking a lot of them. And those medicines I could not take at my age. I'm not epileptic. If I had epilepsy, they would never have let me even have the baby. Do you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't use those medicines. So I found a surgeon in New York City, another great guy, Imad Eskandar, another great name. And I emailed him and said, a friend of mine, when you worked in Boston, you did this surgery, would you look at me? And he said, yep, go get an MRI and we'll take a look. So I get the MRI and I'm sitting at the kitchen table with Kenny and the phone rings and it's Concord Neurological Associates. So there's never good news an hour after a procedure. It was like an hour after the MRI. It was December now. And basically said, you have 3 brain tumors.
What?
Which is what Molly died from, right? Right. So I'm sitting at the kitchen table and I'm just like, okay, Molly's dead. Kenny's dying. And my poor daughter just wants to have a normal senior year of high school. She doesn't want to be the girl with the dead sister. She wants to go to school and feel like she's normal, which of course she's never going to ever be normal.
Yeah.
She's always going to be her. So that whole day was just me thinking like, what the heck do I do? So I had a pre-op appointment that was going to be to look at the trigeminal nerve, because that's also brain surgery. They go in and they cushion the nerve and reroute the arteries back there.
Oh, okay.
But now I have this big brain tumor. So I email him and say, here's the deal. He's like, come on down. He was fantastic. So a friend of mine had gone to college in White Plains, New York. So she drove me to all my appointments initially because she'd gone to college there. And so down we went, and he took a look at it, and it was basically a meningioma, which is the best kind of tumor to get if you're going to get one, because they're not malignant. He said 75% of humans have meningioma brain tumors and never know it. They live their whole life and never know it.
Wow.
It's like a cyst, or it's just, unless it's interfering with something, you don't know you have it. So mine was sitting straight in my eye and straight in my ear. So right at the junction of the auditory and optic nerve. But it was putting pressure on my carotid artery. And so he was amazed that I hadn't had any weird symptoms. And I'm like, well, I get vertigo sometimes, like non-positional vertigo, but I do the Epley maneuver, I do these different things and it helps. And he said, no, if you were having vertigo from that, nothing would help. And so he said, well, we'll take it out. And so he did. January 10th of 2019, I had this giant brain tumor taken out of my head. So the pictures are horrible. They're on my social media. He said, don't cut your hair. It'll be a little incision, no big deal. And then I woke up and I had no hair and a giant black eye and bruising everywhere and a scar that went like my whole entire head.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was insane. Kenny walked in because he was doing dialysis. So they set dialysis up for him down there. So he comes in expecting to see a normal looking me, and he sees He goes, "It just looked like they hit you with a hammer." And he's just started sobbing. So I wake up and he's crying. And I had some college roommates come up that lived in the area to hang with me. So that was incredible. Like,
Why did they end up having to do all
because
of
it
that?
was much bigger than they thought
Wow.
and much more intricately. They couldn't just sort of pull it out.
Okay.
They had to move brain tissue around. And you don't want to move brain tissue around more than you have to.
Sure.
Yeah, it wasn't as easily extractable as they thought. And they knew going in. And I remember afterwards saying to him, "Why didn't you tell me?" And he said, "I was going to give you this horrible news, and then you were going to fall asleep. What a horrible way to fall asleep. I just needed you not to worry."
Mm.
I would have told Kenny more before he left, but he had to go to dialysis, so he was gone. He wasn't there. So it's better that way. Kenny would have sat in dialysis all day, 9,000 times more worried. So I recover from that. And then I had to have radiation because the two on the other side were a lot smaller, too small and too deep to go in. It wasn't like chemical radiation. It was like they blasted them and like what's it? I can't think of the word now, but they chopped them up. It was like they blew up in there.
Yeah,
They didn't
yeah.
melt. They didn't radiate like that would burn you. So I had to have an MRI and go for, the Hannibal Lecter mask and the that was probably worse than the surgeries because I'm really claustrophobic and you cannot move. So you have to lie there and it's like pushing really hard in your face. It was yucky. They played cheesy 80s music, which was good. But throughout this whole experience, I would run into people that I knew. And this happens to Gracie a lot as well. So I feel sometimes like the veil is thin between here and the other side, and that we get a lot of support from whatever the energy is that people still have after their bodies die. Deb had those connections. Every nurse or someone I had in the hospital had some similarity to my life. Either their kids' names were Molly and Gracie, or just weird connections always. And the guy that did the radiation knew my college boyfriend's family. like, like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
They had all these similarities. So anyway, I get through that, and then a month after that, I have surgery on the other side of my head for the trigeminal neuralgia. So I don't recommend 2 craniotomies in 4 months. It was a lot. It took me like a year and a half to really feel okay. My vision was weird. I had all these different things. However, I came through just fine. My mouth still hurts. Like right now, I can feel the condition, but I don't take any pain medicine now, none. And I couldn't have functioned without, medicine. So this is now the spring of 2019. So April 10th, I have the brain surgery, number 2. April 20th, we drive to Florida to Disney because, why wouldn't you? And so poor Kenny now is just so sick. And I'm bald and feeling horrible. So we went with another family. And so they're all at the parks and we're just lying, passed out on the lawn chairs next to the pool at the house that we were renting. And I go online and I see that a girl that Molly used to dance with named Rachel is on life support. And she'd gone out to eat with a friend, went to a Chinese restaurant, ordered her typical egg rolls because it was safe. She's allergic to peanuts. And they had changed from some sort of oil to peanut paste and not put it on the menu, not updated the menu. So she went into anaphylaxis and 2 EpiPens didn't work. They sent a transport ambulance, like everything that could go wrong. Very similar situation to Molly, like everything that could be done wrong was. So we did a whole fundraising thing. We just took care of them like people took care of us. So Jen and I, Rachel's mother, have become good friends, and she's on the board of directors for my foundation now, and she lives like 2 miles up the road.
Oh, nice.
So long story short, we come home and we meet, and they end up needing to take Rachel off life support. And so they're planning on when to do that. Rachel's birthday was May 7th. Molly's unplugged day is May 7th. So they shared that sort of day. And so in the process of saying goodbye to Rachel, I was spending some time with Jen, and she asked me if we had donated Molly's organs. And of course we weren't allowed to because they didn't know if her tumor was cancerous, which it was not, which means we could have. And I said, the big sad thing is Kenny could have had one of Molly's kidneys. And Jen's like, oh, what's Kenny's blood type? And so I tell her, and she says, well, that's Rachel's blood type. So we're at the cemetery putting balloons to the sky because it's 3 years for Molly. And Jen calls and asks Kenny for his kidney transplant coordinator. And I know this is a hard one for me to tell without crying. And so Kenny got one of Rachel's kidneys. So Rachel and Molly danced in a ton of musical theater numbers together. So I always say the kidney that danced in Molly's funeral now lives in Molly's dad.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy connection. That's what I mean. It's just, sometimes. So I'm driving down to have my brain looked at on May 8th, and Kenny's driving to Boston to have, to be put in the hospital for a kidney transplant. So all of these things are occurring in the way they occur because I'm trying to have a baby, like just the whole process of it all. Had I not been trying to have the baby, I wouldn't have been trying to fix my brain. I might not have seen the posts, you know what I mean? Like just all the things that leak. So I go back in like July now of 2019, and the Dr. Cardoni says, yep, we can go ahead and try to do an IVF transfer. So we do all the hormones and stuff for that. First transfer didn't work. Now, Kenny's sperm extraction was before the kidney transplant. So when we went down to say why it maybe didn't work, Dr. Cardoni's like, it wasn't you. You are not the problem. It's him. So, sperm extraction is a needle in your testicles for like 30 seconds, right? Big deal. So poor Kenny's like, oh no. I'm like, no, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
You just be quiet. What I've had to go through here.
Yeah.
So we did. We redid it. And then the next time it worked. So in the summer of 2020, right, I got inseminated 3 days before my 57th birthday and found out I was pregnant August 5th, which was the day we conceived Gracie all those years ago.
Oh, wow.
Weird little connections. And so then I had the baby. Well, I grew the baby. And in the process of growing Jack, of course, every test imaginable was done so my thoughts were I'd make the pregnancy very public to give other women hope and this and that. And so the first 12 weeks, we were quiet about it because if it was not going to work, that's when it would fail. So I thought when I get to 12 weeks, I can tell people. So I get to 12 weeks and you immediately go off all the hormones at that point. They don't wean you off. You just stop.
Oh, wow.
And I guess your body has to kick in. And if it doesn't, it's not going to. So obviously mine kicked in. But Dr. Chaudhary up here, that's my other doctor, Ashish Chaudhary. Don't I ever? My doctors have
great names.
Yes, I do. Imad, Ashish, Vito. I'm
Love
in.
it.
Yep. So he says you will say nothing until 22 weeks. And so I'm going, what?
Wow.
And he said, look, you're a well-known person. People love you or they hate you. There are people out there that would love nothing better than to judge you and criticize you. You don't need the stress. So you're not going to say anything. Fine. And so I didn't. I wore baggy clothes. Some people knew. My coaches at CrossFit knew because, I'm in a tank top and they should know.
Yeah.
know. So we didn't talk about it. I just said I had menopause belly, which was very believable. People didn't question it at all. Like,
Oh, that's so interesting.
yeah, like, are you gassy today? I am so gassy. So
Today
gassy.
and every day.
Yeah.
For the next 9 months.
Yes, exactly. One massive fart.
Yeah.
It'll be over. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the last tests we had to have was a fetal echocardiogram. And so we had to go to Children's Hospital in Manchester. It's Dartmouth. It's a branch of Dartmouth Hitchcock. And that was the last test we had with baby Gordy before we decided to, induce labor and end the pregnancy. So I go, and of course I remember the glass hallway. Here's where I sat and cried. Like I remembered all of it. So we're talking to the ultrasound tech, and we're talking about Molly because Molly died at Dartmouth. Well, was unplugged at Dartmouth. And she said, oh, we all know Molly. We all know Molly's story. Whenever a parent comes in and feels not listened to, we think about Molly. Okay, what are we missing? Which makes me happy because kids deserve to be believed.
Yeah.
And so I go through all of that and I talk about that I lost a baby, that the last time I was here having this test was for a baby that I had to give, terminate the pregnancy and it had this 4 different heart defects all in one and this and that and this and that. So she goes off. So the cardiologist comes in, she sits down and she says, first of all, everything here is fine. This looks fine, but I have some questions for you. So I said, okay, and she said, tell me about the baby that you lost. So I told her all about baby Gordy and Dr. Rockenmacher and all the different transposition of the great arteries and basically upside down and backwards and all the things that were wrong with the heart. And she said, and when was this? And I said, 1999. And she said, August? And I'm like, yeah. And she said, okay, so I retired from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and I moved up here and I'm working part-time and I have not done pediatrics because after 20 years of working with sick babies, I needed a break. So the deal was I won't do peds. So she said, I never work on Tuesdays. I never do pediatric ultrasounds, but someone called out. So I'm here on a day I'm not supposed to be here. And when I saw your age, I thought it was a mistake because what 57-year-old is going to have a fetal echocardiogram? So I shouldn't even be here. But the long story short is I was at the hospital when your baby arrived and instrumental in like learning from him. I wish I could say I'm making it up
Oh my gosh.
because So
I can't tell you how many times I've had chills as you've
I
told your
know,
story.
it's like, wow, I just must live right on the edge of the veil is what I think.
Mm.
Like anyway, yeah, so Kenny and I couldn't talk. Like we literally couldn't utter a word for hours. Like if I wasn't pregnant, we would have gone to a bar, like and just had a drink.
Yeah.
Like what? Oh my God. Like we couldn't even wrap our heads around it. That there was that connection. And she couldn't wrap her head around it. Like I called in at the last minute. I always check to see if there's kids. If I had known you were really if I believed what I read, I wouldn't have come. So clearly she was supposed to come. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. So that was that other sort of weird connection. So the rest of the pregnancy was pretty uneventful. He was due April 13th, and I had to be induced March 20th because I had preeclampsia,
Mm.
which wasn't necessarily age related. I did have some aging of the placenta. When the placenta came out, I'm like, wow, that's not as pink as I remember them being. But that's not uncommon either.
Okay.
And so I had to deliver early, which made me really angry because I wanted Dr. Shottery to deliver the baby. Gracie and Mahler both born in April. I wanted another April baby. Like I had all these,
Yeah.
I had been so zen about it. Like I'm just a passenger on the train. Whatever happens, happens. And I really had been that way. And then all of a sudden I wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, no. But his birth was great. It was all women. The OBGYNs that covered were all women. And I had all these, at one point there was like 6 women in there and the youngest was like an 18-year-old LNA. And then the call-in OBGYN was filling in and she was like, 55. And so it was just a blast,
Yeah.
the whole birth. And he came easily. They gave me magnesium for blood pressure and I fell asleep and I woke up in the morning and I'm like, I guess I'm not having a baby today. Cause I would have thought they would have woken me up and Pitocin and everything else. And I went into labor without it. I just went into labor in the middle of the night. So yeah, so I had breakfast not knowing I was in labor because I didn't really feel much. And then they said, no, you're in labor. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess my stomach is hot. So they broke my water. And then the labor, of course, intensified massively. Kenny came. He came at like 11. And at noon, I'm like, I really want an epidural this time. I don't need to be a hero anymore. I'm too old for this, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, you're going to have him any minute now. So one push, one big giant CrossFit push.
Wow.
And out he came. And then my lunch came. So it was like, have some breakfast, watch the news, have a baby, have lunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, right. And so, those are all sort of the big events. It's like child abuse and dealing with child abuse and going to college for free and, having an amazing athletic career and then settling into where I grew up and then, losing my job and creating drama. And then from the relationship that cost me my job, I feel being very distracted as a mother, but now a dead child and, just all of the things, they just, I've spent a lot of time asking why. And I think sometimes our biggest misconception as humans is that we're supposed to know why, that why even matters at all. Why doesn't change anything. Maybe it would give me a measure of peace. Maybe it wouldn't. But in the process of trying to find out why, I've met amazing people. Here you are sitting in my living room, right? I've had amazing experiences. I've had horrible, horrible days and amazing days. And I have a child. I'm a 62-year-old, still nursing mother. He just won't stop.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. A couple times a day. I know. Part of me doesn't want to. It's a
amazing.
big ego boost. Like
Yeah.
I'm old enough to collect Social Security and I'm nursing a baby.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know what?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, yeah. So that's sort of my story. And sometimes when I go through it all, I think people are just going to think I'm making all this up. And there are people that do think I make things up. I don't know. I can prove all of these things.
Yeah,
I do have the child and I do have the brain tumors and, I did lose the job and,
Yeah, that's wild.
yeah, yeah. So now really my biggest mission is to honor Molly's legacy through helping kids do the things that she loved to do, a very basic foundation. I buy musical instruments, camp tuitions, dance scholarships, all that kind of stuff. And not just dance and music, anything. If a family comes and needs financial help in something, if we have it, we give it. And then I do the podcast and a blog. And that's mostly, I spend a ton of money. I don't make money on it at all, but I really love the feedback, even if it's one person,
Yeah.
and sometimes the feedback and the little messages from people come from the most unexpected places, which is what I love the best,
Mhm.
So my life is just, we're financially stable because of the lawsuit. I hate the money. I call it dead Molly money. But it provides us the ability to spend a ton of time with Jack, to be supportive to Gracie. It allows us to, spend time promoting the foundation, and I get to hang out and talk to people like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my little story.
Just a little. Yeah. Just a little story.
Yeah.
No, first of all, thank you so much for your candor
Mm.
in telling that story, because there is a lot of vulnerability in that on many different
Oh, yeah.
levels. Going back to your childhood,
Yeah.
did your mother believe you when you told her?
She absolutely.
Okay.
She had grown up in a very, talk about generational trauma. She
Yeah.
had grown up in a very abusive reality.
Yeah.
Not her biological father, but a grandfather on one side and a grandfather on the other.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and that the one grandfather, you know, assaulted every female in the family. He was clearly a troubled human.
Yeah.
So I think no, she believed me right away. I think with my mom, her biggest thing was she had no sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
She really, I think she just did what she was told. And she was a generation ahead of me around sexual assault. And
Yeah.
she got pregnant her senior year of high school and didn't get to graduate, and married my dad because of the baby. And so it was really a classic story of a baby coming along and kind of changing a trajectory in a way neither of them wanted.
Yeah.
So she believed me from the get-go, never didn't. But she also just, so the other interesting piece of my story is after I told my mother that I was being abused, we used to spend a lot of time with this older man who what we called Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was actually somebody my mother was in a 15-year relationship with.
Oh.
So he's my biological father and my brother Jonathan's biological father. So in the wake of being honest about the sexual abuse, she and Tom decide it makes sense to tell me, oh, well, daddy's not your daddy, actually.
Oh.
Tom's your daddy, So I'm 13 now. And I remember thinking, are they telling me this because they think it will make me feel better? Like, like it's just one more thing I have to be quiet about. And
Mm.
here's the other thing too. As bad as the abuse was, my abusing dad actually apologized and spent his life trying to make himself better. And when I said, look, I don't want you've lost your right to be alone with my daughters, he was like, you're right, I have. And he didn't feel bad about it, didn't try to convince me otherwise. He really owned it as the abuser. He just owned it. There's no excuse. I will pay for it when I die. He really had a lot of fear about dying because he was afraid of what awaited him. I think my mom just had no agency. And so she's in this relationship with my bio dad. So now my parents divorce. And so my mother doesn't want to marry him. So I just think she sort of got talked into it.
Yeah.
And for all the ways he remained broken, I can see that she would be trusting enough to bring him back. I just can't imagine ever being with somebody that had
Yeah.
done that.
Sure.
But, she had things done to her that far out yucked my abuse, and so I just think that is evidence of her damage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think that kind of stuff is generational
Yes,
until you
yes.
actively put a stop to it.
Yes.
And it's very true. I mean, women's agency is quite recent in
Yes.
terms of even like legally being able to survive
Yes.
on your own.
Yes.
So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, while we could sit here and judge all we want, like
Right.
how could you let that happen,
Right.
or how could you take him back?
Right. That was survival mode for her.
Yeah.
I still have these two
Yep.
younger kids I have to raise. I can't afford this house on my own, like all of the things. The hardest part for me, though, was the secret keeping, because I wasn't supposed to tell about Uncle Tom, even though I knew we'd spend the weekends with him. Don't tell Daddy that we were with Uncle Tom, right?
Mm.
And then I'd get molested. Well, you can't tell anyone about this.
Yeah.
So the two parents in my life are telling me to lie
Yeah.
all the time. And then I have this father. I'm supposed to lie about that. And then my mother was insistent that I not tell people I was molested, that nobody would believe me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have spent my life feeling like I'm the fucking secret keeper.
Yeah.
Why is this my job? Why do I have to not hurt everybody when it's hurting me really badly?
Mm.
So when I was in my early 20s, I had a therapist that said, you need to tell your Higgins dad, it's not your job to keep the secret, because it was becoming a bit obvious just in physical looks. And Jonathan and I looked so much different than, my other siblings. And I told Jonathan, and he was quite hurt by it and angry. And got mad at my mother, and my mother's like, "Why did you tell?" I'm like, "Why did you tell?"
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not your you're the
Yes.
grown up here. I'm not the secret keeper. So we ended up telling my father, and my mother had a very hard time and bailed at the last minute. So I'm the one that ended up telling him, like,
Mm.
and again, I think it's so funny because what he did was horrifying, but he just owned it to every fiber of his being and just used it to make himself better. He didn't use it as excuse to be bad.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? He
Mhm.
quit drinking. He got very deep into his religion, the Baha'i faith. He worked hard. He helped people. He really tried to make it right. I mean, you can't make it right, but he tried to.
Yeah.
And I think my mom has just suffered. I really do think. She's had a wonderful life, but never. My father died in October, so we're coming up on a year,
Oh, wow.
and she doesn't quite know what to do.
Yeah.
She So I'm moving her into a house that I own that's nearby, which will be good, but it'll be the first house that she's ever lived in without anyone else.
Mm.
Like, she's still in the apartment, but he lived there too,
Yeah.
so yeah, she's living alone now, but she's never lived in a home in her entire life that she was the first person to live in
Yeah.
without someone else in her family.
Yeah.
So I think she's overwhelmed by that. She's 83, so she's not super young, but I think it will be good for her.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I was always believed. That's another thing with no one ever didn't believe me.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, I have to imagine, you talk about the lefts and rights in life and how things happen, that I think is one of them,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
How your mom reacted to that and for better or worse down the road too.
yeah.
Do you think the pressure to keep those secrets when you were a child has really bolstered your desire to be somebody that's so open and
Yeah.
vulnerable?
Yes. Don't tell me to shut up.
I will not.
Yes. Yes, I have always yes, I absolutely say it. That was the hardest part for me when I first went to AA and gave up the really unhealthy sort of binge drinking and blackout drinking, and I would talk. You go up and you tell your stories, and I always felt for me that the hardest part was the secret keeping, and that in my unhealthy fallout of that abuse, I created situations I had to lie about
Mhm.
because I was only ever comfortable if I had big chunks of my life that nobody knew about. It's a horrible way to live. It's just so now I'm an open book. There's,
Yeah.
there's no freaking secrets. And if I choose to do something and I have to keep it secret, I won't do it now. And
Mhm.
it's taken I'm in my, I'm 62 now. It took me a long time to get here. And that was a big corner turn for Jack. Like, you know what? If I'm gonna do it, then I'm gonna tell people I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so can I do that? Okay, so maybe I won't do that.
Sure.
And I haven't actually had any challenges like that at all. But yeah, being told to be quiet and not tell has been a huge piece of, and in my job loss, I was quiet. I got so bamboozled and set up.
Mm.
I've done some podcast episodes around the truth of it, but not 100%. So I might do like an online book about it. You just write it chapter by chapter and invite
Yeah.
people to pay $1 and read the next chapter, that kind of thing. Because there are lots of people that have gone through in their jobs what I went through with like forced resignations and being set up and lied about and that sort of thing. But oh, you nailed it. I'm completely open. And people say, "Why do you tell everything?" I'm like, because everything is what everyone goes through.
Yeah.
If I just tell the parts that don't make you uncomfortable, I'm
Mm.
helping you be comfortable, but that's not helping you.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, I think. I do a lot of work around domestic violence advocacy, and I will have people tell me straight up, like, "I think it's great that you do that, but, like, I don't want to listen." And it's not because of their own trauma necessarily, it's just like, "I can't handle that."
Right. Right.
And, I do have grace and compassion for that at some level,
Yep.
for
Yep.
sure. But also, like, you're not experiencing it. The least you can do is hear about it and be
Yes.
educated about it.
Yes.
So I think it's anybody saying you're better off being quiet or you're better off, not telling the truth, whatever, is either afraid of telling the truth themselves
Yeah.
or is just in a really angry and dysfunctional place, I
Right.
think.
Right.
That's my
Yep.
opinion. And, I think that people have the right to be to do that in whatever capacity makes sense for them. Not everybody wants the online space to be their domain, but
Right.
it could be with your own family and friends,
Right.
even just being open with the people with a core group of people counts
Yes.
as being
Yes.
open and
Yes. Yes.
vulnerable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I do that. And yeah. And on all the different levels, I remember shortly after Molly died, someone told me that I shouldn't cry in public because it makes people uncomfortable.
Oh,
And I'm like, okay, well, it's not my job to make sure they're comfortable. Like,
yeah.
and yeah, that's when I work with child loss moms that when like I'm in a lot of online groups. And when people say, what should I do? It's been 5 years and I still couldn't get out of bed today. I'm like, well, then good for you for staying in bed.
Mm.
If you wake up and want to stay in bed. Like no one is you in there, and we spend so much time in all manner of trauma recovery trying to make sure everything is okay around us.
Mhm.
And sometimes nothing is okay,
Yeah.
and so, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I think the other thing too is within our culture, everything is so production based as
yes,
well.
yes,
So, what healing looks like is also gets pulled into what you can produce from your
yes,
healing,
yes.
which is, not a great way
No, no,
to
no, because
look
it's
at it.
because I get sucked into that sometimes,
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, her daughter's only been dead 2 years, and she has this huge foundation, and Molly's been gone 9, and I'm still spending mostly my own money on everything, like,
Yeah.
I suck," and it's like, "Well, no, no,
Yeah.
I don't suck," but
No, not at all.
yeah.
So you mentioned therapy when you were like 20. So how did you kind of acknowledge that you needed to start healing, and what did that look like for you?
It was a lot of external suggestions, so when I first told that I was being abused, my mother made me go, and I hated it, and then my biological father did medical hypnoanalysis, so hypnotherapy. So as boundary crossing as that was, I did a lot of hypnosis therapy throughout high school.
With him?
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and actually I cured a lot of my emotional asthma through hypnosis, which was amazing. It's an incredible form of therapy, but talk about vulnerability. You have to really be willing to open up your subconscious, and the person that's guiding you needs to be a good person.
Mhm.
So that was super helpful, and then I went off to college, and I didn't have therapy in college at all, and then I was dating one of my coaches, so here we go again, so this amazing guy, Bob Seveny, he, was 20 years older than me, and I was all over the place, and he was a Vietnam vet, he was a mess, I mean, but he could look at me and say, "Okay, I have my issues because 'cause I'm with you, and, you're 24 and I'm 44, but, you need therapy and you need to go to a psychiatrist." And so I found this psychiatrist in Newton, Massachusetts, Norm. His last name began with an I. Wasn't Abramson. I don't know. Anyway, he was unbelievable.
Mm.
He was great. He was as Jewish as he sounds. And he had oh, he was fantastic. I love Jewish culture, by the way. It's like Italian culture. It's the same,
Mhm.
but different.
Yeah.
But it's just thick and rich and it envelops everything. So he was the one that really wanted me to come clear about my mother. And so that was super helpful. And he was the first one to put me on medication. So I took trazodone, which
Mm.
is primarily a sleep aid, but it helps with depression. And it was life saving for me because I finally fell asleep and slept.
Mm.
I'd get like 10 hours of sleep a night, which was wonderful. So I went through that, and then I that was probably my biggest chunk of therapy, and then I don't recall. Oh, yes. No, no. Then I married Eric after, 12 weeks of knowing him and realized, "Oh my god, I've married my abusive father." Eric wasn't a sexual abuser, but he was not. There were issues
Yeah.
that I'm like, "What have I done? This is awful." He's a bit narcissistic, and so I found a therapist, Judy, and I went to her off and on my entire all through leaving Eric, all through meeting Kenny, then all through Roy and my job loss, like, I'd go back to her. And she was fantastic, and she was a sex therapist. I didn't pick her for that reason, but she just ended up being this amazing therapist. So, I did that all the way through, and then after Molly died, my best therapist of all, Elizabeth Moulton, she was fantastic, and when I told her my whole 'cause her office was in the office of my bio dad, like, it was the
Oh,
same
wow.
office in the same building downtown
That's
Concord.
wild.
So we're sitting there once, and we were doing some EMDR, which was fantastic. And I said, "Oh, it just makes me so funny that this is my safe room." And she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, let me explain my history with this room." So because my bio dad also did hypnosis on my abuser dad. Like, talk about crazy
Yeah.
intermingled lack
Wow.
of, yeah, like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe some lack of boundaries
Yeah.
there.
How about
Glad it was
no bound? Yeah,
helpful.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. So I told her the whole story, and she just said, "Based on your life, I'm amazed that you aren't dead."
Mm,
Like, or truly, truly drug addicted and selling yourself on a street corner in some hideous part of some hideous town.
mhm.
I can't believe that you're okay. And so that made me feel better. But she was an incredible grief therapist. She really, truly, truly helped me dealing with those years after losing Molly. She knew all about the cocaine use and how I was getting high all the time. And she was fantastic. She just really knew how to work through it and keep me sort of stable. She was
Yeah.
wonderful. And then she retired.
Mm.
But
Damn it.
yeah, I know. Like, what the heck? So I haven't had a therapist since, but really, when I record a podcast, I'm on I use Zoom, right? So I'm looking at myself.
Yeah.
It's therapy sometimes. Like I've just read so much and learned so much and met so many people that I'm constantly in a state of mindfulness and process
Mhm.
as I run around like a crazy woman. But yeah,
Well, I think too, you've been in therapy, you do have some of those tools.
yeah, right,
So
right,
I don't think that people have to be in therapy in perpetuity,
right,
right?
right.
But I do think that it's helpful as a guideline for
Yeah,
getting, knowing how to process things
correct.
yourself
Yeah,
and have
exactly.
those
Yeah.
tools. So as far as Molly's illness, how long was she symptomatic?
Well, in hindsight, it was a fetal cell tumor, meaning she'd had it since she was born.
Oh my gosh.
So she had some weird leg issues and balance issues. She got wicked car sick. So the tumor was on her brainstem. So
Mhm.
it's all those basic body functions. She had massive overproduction of saliva sometimes. I'd wake up in the night and she'd be like choking. I have to roll her over. She's got all this saliva.
Oh wow.
Just funny stuff. But her active symptoms, she got Bell's palsy like in the spring of 2015, so a year before she died.
Okay.
And then that got better. And she was started to have headaches and she just would be dizzy. Then she started so by about December, she'd wake up in the morning sometimes she'd started throwing up and then she'd throw up like for 2 hours and then boom stop. And I'm like, "All right, that sounds like a migraine."
Mhm.
I had migraines where I'd puke and then in an instant I felt better. So I just thought, "Okay, she has migraines." That was my assumption. But that continued. And then she started standing up and if she stood up too quickly, she'd grab her head and just hold it for a while. So that's when I took her to the doctor. And then so began 6 weeks of weekly appointments where they just kept sending us home, and I'm like, "Can you just X-ray her head? Like, just
Mm.
X-ray it. Doesn't have to be if you put her head in front of an X-ray machine, would you see inside? Like,
Yeah.
why can't we do this?" And they just kept yeah. So the symptoms go then her back started to hurt. In the morning dizziness, we'd tease her like, "Oh, morning sickness," you know?
Yeah.
And it was like every 7 days or so, which is the 7-day time frame is fairly consistent with a lot of brain fluid issues and aneurysm issues and things.
Mm.
So these things were all just ignored and pushed aside. So when I went away, it was school vacation week. I went away with Roy to Amsterdam the last week of her life, which was I still have a hard time with that. So I missed it. I missed her last days alive. And when I came home, she was already at the ER and she was already semi-conscious. She knew I was home. We said, "I love you." I said, "I'm sorry I left you." And it's okay. We had a good week with Daddy. Everything's fine. And then she died, so the symptoms just exacerbated, and what finally made us call 911 was the projectile vomiting, like, in her sleep,
Oh,
and the fact that she was in her sleep, they just in all of the medical documents, they just keep saying she's anorexic. They did a pregnancy test, they did a drug test. Like, how about you look inside her head?
right.
Like and it was just awful. I to this day, I don't know why. Why?
Yeah.
It
Do you,
makes no sense.
it doesn't make sense
No.
why there's so much resistance
Yeah.
to just doing
A CAT scan. Yeah,
yeah.
it would have 3 minutes, and had they done it, even 2 hours before she died, had they done it and seen a tumor, they could have put a drain in and airlifted her
Mhm.
to Hanover and had the tumor taken out, and she'd be fine.
Oh god.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it the same doctors like telling you no, or did you have multiple doctors saying no, we're not
So
going
it
to
was
do
her
that?
pediatric office, so it was 2 doctors there. 1 doctor 3 times, but never our doctor, and he was on vacation, and he saw that we'd been in, and he meant to call, so he was just like, "I'm so sorry if I had called it if I had called and heard any of this, I would have sent you right in for us." Because he loved Molly, and he knew
Mhm.
Molly. When she had the Bell's palsy, Oh, and then they thought she had Lyme disease, like, she had a tick bite, which then the Bell's palsy, so they thought it was Lyme disease, and the other doctor's like, "Okay, you're in here all the time with her. She's clearly making it up." "No, no." So he called me that night and said, "I've called the prescription in. It's 30 days antibiotic. Take the antibiotic. Don't get Lyme disease." That was Molly's reality with the practice up there. Then the ER it was a hospitalist who was on his first day and 2 male nurses, and they were awful. And it's not because they're men, but I just feel like, because a couple of the other doctors were not, they were women, but, "Stop asking for help. She's stable and she's safe. Stop it." And I'm just like,
Oh my
"What?"
gosh.
And then they made me take her in to go to the bathroom. She could hardly walk. She sits down, no pee comes out. And the nurse is just standing there with his arms folded watching her. I'm like, she's kind of modest. I want to make sure she pees. And she looks up and she's like, "Come here often?" And I'm like, "Okay, she's not right. Can we look
Yeah.
inside her head?"
Yeah.
No, no, they wrote in the notes that she was behavioral. She was unconscious all day. She was unconscious all day. She was, yeah, it was yucky. So,
I am like getting angry
oh,
for
yeah,
you, but I just what kid wants to spend all of their time in
right,
doctor's appointment? Like
right,
like what is the motive behind making something like that
correct,
up?
right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No, it
crazy.
was crazy.
How did you deal with what I'm sure was anger after she died?
Well, we sued the hospital.
Yeah.
So and my attorneys were fantastic. And so a lot of my anger I could get out there.
Yeah.
But I got high all the time. I mean, I really did fall into really basically daily drug use.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help it. And it was weird though, because if we leave town, like we went to Disney, I'd be gone for 2 weeks. I wouldn't even think about the drugs.
Mhm.
We had some friends that took us to Hawaii. I didn't use any drugs in Hawaii. But the
Yeah.
minute I was home and surrounded by it all,
Yep.
I was plummeted right back into that dark space. I'm still angry, and here's the other thing. The multi-million dollar lawsuit, right? We got half of what we got, but it's be quiet money. It's don't tell money.
Right.
I'm not allowed to talk about it. If they listened to this podcast, they could call me and say, "You need to stop saying stuff like that." They could, because I'm not supposed to talk about the fact that my daughter was ignored, pregnancy tested, you know, accused of lying, died in an emergency room. A tumor blew up in her head. So I'm not making that up. She's
Yeah.
dead now. Like, clearly, I brought
Yeah.
her and you didn't do your job. And even with all of that, the hospital malpractice is quite ugly. Yeah, going through a medical malpractice deposition was here's where child abuse helps. So I have to have a straight face. I have to be articulate. I can't jump into an answer. I can't let them get to me. So my attorneys were all quite worried because I'm, this drug addicted mother that can't talk without trying. I'm like, "Oh, you don't know, I can step out." And so they're like, "What?" I'm like, "I can step out." So I'm like, "Just don't worry about it. Tell me, what do you need me to do?" And
Yeah.
I'll do it. So stepping out is what you do when you're being abused. You step out, you
Yep.
dissociate, whatever. I call it stepping out. So it was just a matter of, okay. And so we did that. So in the deposition, they said, don't respond. When they say, "We're so sorry about Molly," just stare them down. So I said, "Okay." So I just, stared them down.
Mhm.
So then I was answering some questions and 2 or 3 different scenarios came up. And I said, "Well, I have some thoughts." And so a couple of questions came up and I had my answers that I was articulate and like slammed it right home. So I saw them, my attorneys were like covering their faces. So I thought, "Oh no, I'm doing something wrong." So they said, "We need to take a break." So we took a break and we get down to the office and they were like, "Oh my God, who are you?" I'm like, "I told you I could do this. Like,
Yeah.
I can step out. I can do what needs to be done to get through the
Mm.
traumatic event." But, in that process, they just tried to paint me as a terrible mother. "Well, in 2013, you asked a friend of yours for a controlled substance." I'm like, "Yeah, I had a toothache and I
Yeah.
was out of pain medicine and I knew that she had an ongoing prescription. And so she brought me a couple over. What does that have to do with my daughter dying in an ER 3.5 years later?"
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
so things like that. But their goal was to make me look bad so that if we did go to trial, a jury wouldn't like me.
Mm.
And I'm like, "So you only want juries to like good mothers. So
Mm.
it's okay you killed my kid as long as I'm a bad mother." And
Mm.
then they would try to walk around like I was
Yeah.
like that with
Good
my,
for you.
yeah, with my
Good for you.
responses. Yep.
Because regardless of how good or not of a mother you were, which
Right.
is really
Irrelevant. Yeah.
irrelevant,
Right.
your daughter didn't deserve to die.
Correct. Exactly.
And that's the whole point. And
Yes.
and this is where too I think I'm so disenchanted with our legal system,
Oh, me too. And
and
our medical system.
yeah, but it's pay to play, it's
Yes.
all theater,
Yes,
it's
yes,
all
yes,
made up
yes,
games, it
yes.
truly is,
Mhm.
and I have lost so much respect for it, honestly, over
Yeah,
the years, but we do love perfect victims, and so if our victims aren't perfect, we have a
right.
really hard time
That's right.
reconciling
That's right.
them to be a part of injustice,
Correct.
and that's not fair.
No, no, and that's so true in sexual assault. I was a health
Yeah.
educator, and I did a whole unit on consent and how tricky it is, which I wish I still taught health because we certainly live in a consentless society right now.
Mm.
But I would talk about the fact that, if you steal a Twinkie from Cumberland Farms and you steal a Twinkie from the Wawa, it's the same crime. If you rape a 7-year-old and you rape a 90-year-old, it's two completely different crimes. You rape a prostitute and you rape a nun, you know, okay, so maybe the victim suffers quite differently, but a rape is a rape is a rape.
Yes,
But that isn't how it's seen at all. And that
correct.
and that that just bleeds through so many levels of whatever the victimization might be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
So, and they needed to divert for the fact that I'm a school board member. I'm well known in the community. I'm a successful athlete. So I had a bit of notoriety. They insisted that if we had a trial, that it not be in Concord because they wouldn't be treated fairly. I'm like, well, okay, I'm the one with a dead kid. So I think I've
Yeah.
already been treated unfairly. Like,
Mm.
yeah, it was an ugly process,
Yeah.
but I helped me deal with my anger.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it was an outlet because I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And I appreciate once again your candor in saying that you're still angry
Yeah.
because I think one of the things with grief that people don't like to talk about is that it doesn't ever completely go
Oh,
away
hell no.
and you move through different phases of it.
Right.
But just like anything, it ebbs and flows,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Based on the
Yeah.
situation, and so people are uncomfortable
Yeah.
with that.
I have my picket fence theory. I got a big thing about picket fences, but so I will for the rest of my life have one foot in utter despair and one foot in happiness
Mm,
because I'll never not have a dead child, two dead children. They
yeah.
will always be dead. That will never change. My love for them will never change. So on a good day, I look down and I just see the little pickets peeking out of the dirt, right? And I can walk, no problem. Sometimes I can either get on one side or the other, but I don't stay that way long because it doesn't last.
Yeah.
Because as happy as I am, I remember my child, and as sad as I am, I realize, okay, I don't always want to be sad. So it's a straddle. So a good day is a low picket fence. Typical days, the picket fence is probably up to my knees,
Mhm.
where I have to moderate how I walk sometimes. If I forget, then I might bump into it. And bad days, my feet don't reach the ground. So everybody pictures straddling a picket fence
Yeah.
is not comfortable, right?
No.
Male or female, it's not a good thing. And that's the rest of my life. So if
Yeah.
the picket fence is high, which sometimes it is, I just have to honor the picket fence. Like
Mm,
I don't have control over that. I really truly don't. All I have
yeah.
control over is how I get myself to one side or the other. Because at those points, that's probably in 9 going on to 10 years without Molly, I can finally get to a point where I can sort of alleviate the picket fence. It's not like, "Oh, I'll choose to be happy," but I can find ways to alleviate the picket fence. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe I put a pillow under there, the whatever the metaphorical pillow might be.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
but that's my one. Another analogy that I've often used is a blanket. So think of a sleeping bag that's like those old flannel and cloth ones, and it's wet, and a dog peed on it, and there's mud in there, and you carry it around. So that's like the day Molly died. It's like there it is. So now, most days it's clean. It smells like Downy.
Mhm.
It's all rolled up neatly. I can carry it like a backpack, but I never don't have it. It's
Mhm.
either a nice, neat, sweet smelling backpack of death, or it's the smelly blanket.
Yeah.
So I think, and when people say things like, the memory should make you happy. Okay, well, obviously you've never lost somebody of this magnitude
Wow.
because, the memories might be happy, but they remind me that she's not here.
Yeah.
I don't have any new ones.
And grief is always complicated,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
Regardless of who it is,
Yeah.
too. I
Yeah.
mean, because our relationships can be complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in 2025, it's wild that we're still telling people how to grieve.
Oh, I
But,
know. Oh, I know. I know. Yeah.
yeah, we can't seem to get away with that. And I think part of it is, again, in our culture of production driven, you know, production is nobility
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
we can't sit in something that isn't solved, right?
Correct.
And
Right.
so
Right.
discomfort is something that is unsolved.
Right.
And so to just let it be and to acknowledge that it's there and like we can hold things in tension that yes, there's discomfort here, but also that doesn't mean that these interactions aren't worthwhile. We're really uncomfortable with it. We don't
Right.
know how to deal with
Right.
that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes technology and modern convenience, the ability to communicate around the world, all those things, as good as they are, they separate us so much from our inner selves. I
Mm,
think if we suddenly lost all the power and now neighborhoods had to work together to survive and share resources and this and that, that we'd figure out so many things that would help all of these things.
yeah.
Like I think of the movie Wall-E,
Mhm.
the big marshmallow guys sitting in chairs and the earth has died and all this. I feel
Mhm.
like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the robot's the one that's in love with the other robot. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to navigate,
Yeah.
and I think it never it's always been hard, but in this moment in time with the technology the way that it is and with the world the way that it is, it's hard to feel connected.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's why it's so important that there are people like you
Yeah.
who insist on telling your
Right.
story
Right.
and insist on,
Right.
being a voice that people can connect to.
Right.
Because it's something even if we don't acknowledge it, we all need it.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Right. And what I love about both podcasting and listening, is that you're in charge. Like I can talk about whatever I want,
Mhm.
so I have agency to say my words.
Yeah.
If I'm listening to a podcast that troubles me, I can turn it off until I'm ready to finish.
Yeah.
It gives the quote unquote victim, or the quote unquote person that's suffering and needs support, complete control over what they choose to listen to and how long they choose. Like, I
Mhm.
love that and it's free,
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, the podcasting world is fantastic, and I really wasn't at all involved in it until I started a podcast.
Same.
Yeah,
I mean, I loved listening to podcasts, but
but I even didn't know that much.
okay.
Yeah, not I listened to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, because
Okay.
that's all I try to see how many questions I could get right. Yeah, yeah, but otherwise, now I listen to gazillions of them all the
Yeah.
time.
I mean, before we even started, we were doing like our 6 degrees of
Yeah,
separation. We
yeah,
know so many of the same people, and it really is a small world,
I know.
and it's
Yeah,
fabulous.
I love it.
It is awesome knowing that there are people that are passionate enough about their hobbies or their interests or
Yeah,
you know, their causes that they want to dedicate the time. And if you've never done a podcast, you may not know how time intensive
right.
and honestly expensive it can be.
Right, right. Oh, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on this podcast
Yeah.
because I just record it and send it.
Yeah.
And I don't have the right kind of brain to edit and all that meticulous stuff. I'm a wide angle lens kind of person,
Mhm.
like the Gestalt, you know. I'm not
Yeah.
the detail. So, to me it's money well spent,
Yeah.
and it supports somebody's craft, which I also like. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, but it
Absolutely.
would be nice for me to, you know, I don't know, maybe have it grow or be bigger than it is, but I can't have that intention behind it, or I'm not going to be authentic in what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So,
And truly, I mean, there are so many podcasts. People look at podcasts and think that it's a great way to make a
yeah,
quick buck or
no,
do a
not a bit.
side hustle.
Yeah,
It's not,
no,
not at all. And even having that knowledge before going into it, it's still harder than
yes, yes,
I even thought it was going to
yes,
be, right?
exactly. Yep.
And I think too, like, because anybody can start a podcast at any time,
Yeah,
one of the like statistics or whatever is that most people that start podcasts don't make it past 3 it's either 3 or 5 episodes, and it's because they think it's gonna be easy, and they
right.
think it's gonna, like, immediately take off, and
Yeah,
it's gonna have all of this
right.
traction,
No,
and that almost never happens
no.
unless you are a celebrity
Right,
or a reality TV
right,
star,
right. Exactly.
then,
Yeah,
then you'll be fine.
right.
But, to be honest and really truly no shade to them, I don't think we need more of those
No,
kind of
no,
podcasts.
right.
I
No,
just don't.
right. I would agree. I would agree.
So I do have a question that I ask everybody at the
Okay.
end of each episode,
Yeah.
which is, through the lens of your experience, what does compassion mean to you?
The first thing that comes to mind would be the words loving acceptance. To
Mm.
have compassion for someone means that you lovingly accept them or what they're going through or their experience, even if you have nothing in common with it or disagree with it or even are made ill by it.
Mm.
That if compassion came first, a lot of problems would be alleviated. I know for me, the people that have given me the most support are people who sometimes I know don't agree with anything I say, but show up again and again and again because they're compassionate, because
Mm.
what they see is the suffering or the person or the circumstance and all the things that people can use as barriers to being compassionate don't block them.
Yeah.
So I guess for me it would be loving acceptance. And I know for me when I'm compassionate to somebody, we have a lot going on politically right now, and I can't publicly share my compassion because then I'm called names and so that to me, if we all had compassion around a lot of what's going on in our society and culture right now, rather than defense and name calling, and we'd be a lot better off. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just loving acceptance.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think, a lot of times where we think or we're told that to lovingly accept somebody is to co-sign their behavior or
Right.
their life.
Right.
And it, at the end of the day, how arrogant is that?
Right.
That we think we even have the right to co-sign anybody's behavior or anybody's life. It's not our
Right.
business.
Right.
Our only business is to show up for and be a friend for
Right.
other human
Right.
beings.
Right. Right. Exactly. And just do the best we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look at all religious teachings, which get really manipulated by people who want to use them for power, basically says the same thing.
Yeah.
Every religion has a golden rule, and the golden rule is basically just be kind.
Yeah.
you know, treat someone like you hope they would treat you if you're going through
Exactly.
whatever they're going through. Yeah, yep,
Love people. Yeah.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
That's the whole thing.
yeah,
The whole point.
exactly.
That is the whole point.
Yeah,
So this has been so fantastic.
yeah,
Thank you
same,
so
same. Well, thank
much
you.
for
You know, I'm
doing
going to
this
have
with
you on my
me. I would
podcast
love
now.
to be on
Yeah,
your
yeah,
podcast. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
That'd be
So
amazing.
we'll definitely make that
Yeah,
happen.
yay!
Thank you so much, Barb.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Human Experience. Everyone has a story, and I'd love to hear yours. So be sure to check out the show notes for more information about how to stay in touch. Do good and love well.